My name is Allie. I am a doctor of physical therapy as well as a nationally certified Pilates instructor. I founded the Pilates RX here in Boston, and I teach with the Community Online Academy every Thursday all day and have been since we started back in March. So today's program is our traditional back pain class. We have 30 minutes. We're going to be moving through pretty much the whole time. We'll save a minute or two at the end for questions. And just so you guys know, we are going to stand up a little bit during our class today, so just make sure you have room to do so. But otherwise, just your yoga mat and your yoga space to get moving for today's program. Before we head down onto the mat, as always, I encourage you guys to listen to your body. Please take the option that feels best for you. And I offer a number of ways to modify, so don't be afraid to take those modifications. I want you guys to leave this class feeling better than you came into it. So we'll start lying down on your back in a comfortable resting position. And you can choose to have your legs all the way extended or knees bent, feet flat. And just allow your body to melt down and get settled. So keeping your head resting down, your feet resting down, shoulders back. Just take a moment here to get connected to your body. I know that this has been a very stressful week for many people, so take this 30 minutes to just spend some time on you and spend some time on healing your body, doing what feels good for your body. Letting your head rest down, your shoulders rest down, your feet. And just allow the heaviness of your body to sink into the mat. And as you lie here and get connected to how your body feels, we'll start with our breath. Our breath is the foundation of how our lower back feels, how it moves, how it gets stability. So I'd like you to try starting your inhale breaths in through your nose, and then gently releasing your exhale breath out through your mouth. And when you release that breath out through your mouth, it's as though you're blowing through a straw or perhaps blowing out birthday candles. Taking your inhale breath in through the nose, and with that exhale breath, blowing out through the mouth. So as you blow out through the mouth, you'll find that your rib cage starts to close in and together, and that helps to create some compression around our lungs to flush the air out. That closure of the rib cage down is what also helps to set our abdominals in a position where they can fire best. So that's really helpful when it comes to back pain, because of course our core is number one supporter of how our back moves. We'll try 2 more big breaths in like this, inhaling, open up and expand, and exhale to release and let it go. And one more time like that, big inhale, open up, and exhale to release. And we'll start with our gentle pelvic tilt. So if you imagine the space underneath your lower back, we're going to rock our tailbone back to close that space and rock it away to open the space. As you rock back and forth, you may hear some clicking or crunching in your back. As long as that's not painful, that's okay. We're doing these pelvic tilts to actually create mobility in our lower back. And so as we gently rock back and forth, we're actually working to bend our very low back forward and backwards. So if this is the first moving you've done today, it's normal for this to feel a little bit stiff. I want you to keep it within your body's comfortable range of motion, and know that as you gently rock back and forth, that comfortable range of motion should start to increase. Good. If you'd like to pair this with your breathing, go ahead and exhale as you rock the tailbone back, and inhale, release forward, exhale to rock back, and inhale to release forward. That's it. We'll try 3 more. And 2 more. Excellent. 1 more time there. Good. And settle somewhere right into the middle. Allow your arms to rest down a little bit wider than shoulder distance and walk your feet together, knees together. So we just did that forward, backward bending with our back. We're now going to do rotation, so twisting, side to side movements. So allow your legs to gently rock side to side, trying to keep your knees together and feet together the whole time. And as you rock side to side, you're only allowing your legs to go as far as you can without letting your rib cage or shoulders lift off the mat, but also without any sort of pain. So be gentle, work within the range of motion that's comfortable for your body. This should just feel like some gentle movement, maybe a light stretch. But the point here is to just warm up the tissue, bring some blood flow to the body, especially targeting the lower back. Good. And here you can let your breath be comfortable, be natural. We'll try 3 more. And 2. And once more, just like that, and then settle somewhere right into the middle. From here, separate your feet back to hips distance apart and walk your heels in close enough to be able to tap them with your fingertips. Once you're in that position, ground your feet down into the mat. Press through all 5 toes. Dig your heels into the mat. I haven't moved at all, but I'm actively pushing my feet down. That's going to help as we go into this next bridging movement. And this bridging motion is a nice way to stretch the front of the hips while also strengthening the back. So pressing down, lift your hips up into a bridge and hold. In this position, it's your glutes, your butt muscles that should be working. And if you're not sure, maybe you feel it in your low back or you feel it in your hamstrings, bring your hands to your butt muscles. Give your brain that feedback to turn them on. And sometimes, especially with the amount of sitting that we do, those glutes get a little bit lazy or sleepy and they are a little difficult to turn on. You can try softening the space between your ribs and hips and pushing not only the heels, but the big toes down into the mat. Now, if you feel comfortable here, we'll add in 5 lift and lowers. You can also just choose to hold your bridge. But if you'd like to try that extra movement, go ahead and do so. And you want to keep your glutes active the whole time. We have 1 more here. We're going to lift the hips up and hold. Now, I have a little challenge. If this is tricky, stay here. But if you'd like to try the challenge, keep your hips and glutes active. Lift your heels up, drop them back down. Lift the heels up and drop them back down. So as you're lifting and lowering your heels, the height of your hips stays the same. So you're grounding through all 5 toes. 3 more. And 2. And 1 more time, drop the hips down. And then you can shake your legs out side to side once again. Excellent. So we're going to try a little bit of core work here next and start by reaching the fingertips up to the ceiling. Make sure that your shoulder blades are on the mat. So draw your shoulder blades back and then one at a time, lift your legs to a tabletop position. Now, it's okay to have a small space under your low back, but I don't want you to have any space underneath your rib cage. So closing the ribs down, letting your head, neck, and jaw relax. You're going to reach your right arm, left leg away from one another. Come back to the center. Right leg, left arm away from one another. Come back through center. So continue alternating side to side. As you do so, imagine that you have this tray of waters on your trunk, and you want to keep that tray of waters totally still as you move here. Now, if you're feeling that tray of waters move, reach up a little bit higher with your arm and your leg. If you're feeling like this is really easy, you can reach down a little bit lower, but find that sweet spot where it's a challenge, but you're still able to keep your trunk nice and steady. And that's one of the functions of our abdominals, is to actually hold our spine stable. Good. Twice more. And once more here. And then hug both knees in towards the chest. Allow the legs to gently rock from side to side. Go ahead and extend the legs out long on the mat. The second function of our abdominals is to actually help us sit up. So to do a curling motion. This is optional here, but if you would like to try to sit up from this position, reach your arms long overhead. Fingertips come up to the ceiling. Now your breathing is super important. I want to hear that exhale as you roll yourself all the way up to sitting. Good. Now from here, we're going to go into a hamstring stretch. If you have a history of sciatica, I'd like you to bend your knees softly here. If not, you can try and sit with your legs straight as long as you can stack your spine tall. Now, if you feel like, wow, it's really, really hard for me to sit tall with my legs straight, you can also add a soft bend to the knees to start with that lifted spine. So when we go into this hamstring stretch, we want to minimize the compression to our spine. So keeping our chest tall, we're going to hinge the hips forward until you feel that stretch down the back of your legs. And be gentle here. That stretch shouldn't cause numbness and tingling in your feet or intense pulling in your calf muscles. If that's the case, that is your nerve. Your hamstring muscle is only in the back of your thigh. It doesn't go down to your calves. What goes into your calf is your sciatic nerve. And so we want to be gentle on the nerves. Nerves themselves are not contractile structures, so they do not stretch the way that muscles do. Keep lengthening and lifting the spine. If your legs are straight, same thing. You're gently tipping forward, keeping that long back. You can rest your hands down by your side. We'll take a big, long, deep inhale breath here. And an exhale breath out. Release. We'll try one more big breath in. And then an exhale breath out to let it go. Good. Now from here, we're going to flip on over to the all fours position. So hands falling underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. So we practice finding that neutral spine. We're going to find that here. So neutral spine leaves the natural curve of your low back and a flat upper back. So imagining that how your back might look when you're standing. And we care about neutral spine because that's our back's most natural alignment. So once you find that neutral spine, we're going to add in a gentle hip stretch by rocking your hips backwards and forward. Now the challenge here is as you rock backwards to keep your neutral spine. It's very easy to rock back and let your tailbone round. To keep that natural curve of the low back, it's tricky. You have to move slow. This is what I would call, it's a stretch, but it's what I would call a motor control exercise, where we're kind of training our brain how to move. And it's really easy for our brain to say, nope, round the back, but it's a little trickier to keep that neutral curve. And it should feel maybe like a little bit of abdominal work at the same time to do that. So as you get comfortable with this movement, see if you can start to press backwards a little bit farther. And this is what we would call a hip hinge. This means that we're bending our hips, not our back. And that's the foundation of how you squat, how you bend over, and how you do heavy lifting without damaging your back. Good. Try 3 more. And gently rock forward. The last 2. Good. And once more here. Good. Now we're going to actually take this into some circles. So same thing, you can imagine that you're holding this tray of waters on your back and start to draw some circles. This is a little bit trickier here, but our hips do move in a circular plane. They're a ball and socket joint. So you should be able, to an extent, to keep that flat back as you draw this imaginary giant circle with your body. And you may find one side's a little bit more awkward than the other. It feels a little bit trickier. That's okay. That may mean that your hip range of motion is a bit more restricted on that side. We're going to reverse those circles. Try the same thing in the opposite direction. Good. Think of lifting your rib cage away from the floor, keeping your head and neck long, drawing gentle circles out, up, and around. 3 more. 2 more. And once more, and then settle somewhere right into the middle. Good. Now from here, we're going to, optional, go into some plank work. And that'll be another challenge for our core in the way that keeps our spine still. So I'm going to show you the modification first. We're going to keep our neutral spine, but drop the hips forward into a modified plank where our knees are resting on the ground. From here, you're going to transition back into your down child pose and then shift back and forward. So your hips may round a little bit for this one, and that's okay. If you're comfortable up in your full plank, you can lift your knees, lengthen your spine, push back, look to your toes, and then gently shift forward, finding your long neutral spine. So of course, a little bit of core work. We also get a nice added stretch to the hamstrings. Again, if you're feeling particularly tight there, you can add a soft bend to your knees as you press back. Very nice. Make sure the shoulders are away from the ears. We've tried 3 more. Good. Press back for 2. And once more here. If you're not already on your knees, go ahead and drop the knees down. And then we're going to lay right onto our stomach. So slowly, gently lower your spine down. You can separate your feet a little wider than hips distance, planting the hands underneath the shoulders. So we're going to take this now into an extension. So that's starting to lift the upper back by pressing the hands down into the floor. If you're comfortable, you can press up all the way to extend your low back as well. But I want you guys to think of this movement segmentally, like you're lifting your neck, your chest, your upper back, your mid back, your low back is the last thing to lift. It's very tempting in this posture to let your low back start the lifting process. And that's because most of us, believe it or not, even if the low back feels tight, we actually have more mobility there than we do in our upper back. So it takes a little bit of focus to find that lift in the upper back as well. And this extension movement is the opposite position of sitting. It's the opposite of being kind of slumped and bent forward. So it is one that tends to be much tighter for people who have to spend most of their days in the seated position. So really, really important stretch here. Good. If you're getting pinching in your low back, you can always shorten your range of motion here, but separating your feet and reaching them back behind you should help a little bit here. We'll try once more just like that. Good. And on this next one, you can bend your knees, push yourself up and back. And now we'll all take that child's pose or shell stretch, whatever feels comfortable for you here. If you want to have your knees together, you can do so. If you want to separate your knees a little bit and sit back over the heels, that's also fine. Maybe you're comfortable allowing your forehead to rest down onto the mat. You can also walk both hands over to one side of the mat, taking a nice long side stretch. And then walking the hands up and over to the opposite side. And again, we're taking that into this side stretch. It's a movement we would call side bending, which makes up a lot of our lateral motion. And then we're going to come on up to a seated position. So I had a couple good questions about this last week, so I want to go over. If you can sit in a cross-legged seat, go ahead and do so here. Other options for those of you who can't sit cross-legged comfortably, you can sit in a diamond position. You can have your legs extended. You can sit on your feet if you want to kneel. You can also grab some pillows and put them underneath your hips. So any of those seated positions are fine. Those are all options available to you. But in whatever your chosen seat is, I'd like you to find the tallest, longest you that's ever been. So as though you're almost standing up right on top of your hips. From that position, open up your wingspan, take up space. When you opened up your arms, did you slump here? Sometimes that happens, especially if our shoulders are a little bit tight. So see if you can pick your chest up tall, drop your shoulders away from your ears, keeping that length of your spine, just gently start to dive sideways. Now, as I dive sideways, I'm not collapsing my body over. I'm kind of keeping this in a small range of motion, just like my spine is sort of teeter-tottering in the wind. So keeping the top of the head tall and lifted, my arms are just guiding my gentle sideways movement here. My hips are staying grounded down on the mat beneath me. So regardless of seated position, you have this nice stable base of your hips down onto the mat. Good. And this is really meant to target both our upper and our lower back. So really the whole spine, you can picture the sides of your spine kind of like an accordion here, just moving side to side. 3 more. And twice more there. 1 more time. And then we're gonna pause with the right arm down, left arm up. Hold here. Can you push the floor away from you with your right hand? Keeping that push into your right hand, start to twist as though you're tapping the left hand to the floor and gently rotate to open. Twist to tap and rotate to open. So be gentle. You may not actually be able to get to the floor, and that's fine here. We're just working to twist and rotate the upper half of our body. And the way we know it's the upper half is because our hips are grounded underneath us. That means our low back relatively isn't changing a lot here. By moving our shoulders, we're taking our rib cage and we're kind of spinning it around our upper back. Twice more. And once more here. Good. Now we're going to teeter-totter up and over to the opposite side. So left hand down. See if you can push that hand away from you. Drop your shoulder away from your ear. Start to rotate and twist, tapping the right hand down and opening up. Now it's normal with this upper back rotation to feel a big difference from side to side. So go slow, it's okay. It's because we have a dominant arm. Just notice it and work within the range of motion that's comfortable for your body. Good. Hips are still grounded onto the mat beneath you. Because we are mobilizing our upper back, our breath is really important here. So any breath pattern is fine as long as you are breathing. So just watch if you're holding your breath here. Good. 3 more. And twice more. And last time here. Good. And come up and lower your arms down. Now, I want to take our class up into the standing position. So there's a lot of fun stuff we can do in standing. Like I said, I think we're all spending a lot of time sitting. So let's take that up into a stand. But I have a little challenge for you guys if you'd like to try. It's a good test of our hip mobility, our ankle mobility, and our upper back mobility. So you can try crossing one foot on top of the other with your feet planted on the floor in front of you. And I'd like to see if you can come up to a stand. And I'm going to make a quick change on camera angle here so you guys have a good view. Awesome work to those of you who tried that, who felt pretty comfortable. So we're going to take that twisting motion into a little bigger movement up here in standing. So when you look down at your feet, make sure your feet are parallel to one another and they should be hips distance apart. Your hips are not the widest part of your legs. Your hip joint comes kind of right up through the center of your pelvis. So it's usually more narrow than you think. From here, push the floor down away from you and reach your arms up tall overhead. Take this long stretch. As you exhale, keeping the feet grounded, you're going to reach one arm in front of you, one arm back behind you. Inhale, reach the arms back up. As you exhale, opposite side, one arm reaches in front, one arm reaches back. Inhale, we lift. So move at your own pace. Your breath pattern might be faster or slower than mine. As you exhale, try twisting. And there's a reason I'm giving you that breath. When you exhale, remember I mentioned your ribs get closer together. So that movement of the rib cage should actually help you to be able to twist a little bit farther, but also to be able to twist with your abdominals on. So that's the support for our spine as we do those sort of vulnerable movements for our back. If you have shoulder discomfort here, if this is too much for your shoulders, simply bend your elbows. Work as though you are doing kind of a goal post motion. And that's okay because really our arms are just here to give us a little extra oomph into that twisting movement. So you can imagine like your fingertips are being pulled in opposite directions, like that's creating leverage for your spine. Now notice if your feet started to change. Keep pushing the feet down into the floor. That's it. We have 2 more here. And once more like that. Good. And then shake the arms out. We're going to finish with one stretch here. That is a roll down motion. So I'll turn to the side so you guys can see. We're going to reach the fingertips up tall. Keep pushing your feet down into the floor. Imagine this fence in front of you. As you exhale, you want to dive your spine from your head up and over this fence. If you have a history of sciatica, bend your knees. Allow your head to hang heavy. And just pause and breathe here at the bottom. Feel the tractioning of your neck, of your upper back. You can maybe even hug the opposite elbows. Take a big deep breath in here. Shake your head yes and no. As you exhale, push down into your feet and start to lift up and over that fence so that your head, neck, and shoulders are the last thing to lift. Let's turn. We're going to finish our class with breath work, just like we did down on the mat, but this time up and standing. So feel your feet pressing down to the floor beneath you. Lift your spine tall. We take an inhale breath, reach tall. Exhale, release and let it go. Another inhale breath here, reach, get long. And exhale, release and let it go. Once more here. Inhale, lift, get longer and taller through the top of the head. Exhale, we let it go. And that concludes the movement-based part of our class. So I want to spend our last couple of minutes answering any questions that you guys have about today's program, about back pain, or anything that comes to mind. I really appreciate you all coming and taking the time out of your morning to do something really healthy for your body. So give yourself a little pat on the back. It's always great to see so many of you at this time. So since we are a nice small group for our 5-star members, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. You can also write to me in the chat. I also ask that if you guys have a minute or two to stick around to leave some feedback for today's program, I'd be happy to share the link, and I would appreciate any feedback you have to give.